Dear students, welcome back. Today we shall continue with the subject conflict and negotiation management. In the last class, we discussed about the introduction to conflict, where we try to understand what is a conflict, then types of conflict, the reasons for the conflict to arise, and very importantly, the theories associated with the conflict and forms of conflict. Then the different factors that impact on the conflict. So now we shall proceed with the next important the chapter, that is analogy of conflict. Analogy of conflict means, analogy means the reasons for the conflict to arise. So before we proceed, let us understand some statistics. Here are some statistics. So usually the cost of workplace conflict, due to the conflict, its impact on the work of the employees usually has been analyzed as the 85% of the employees have, usually they will be having conflict at the workplace, maybe due to the personal factors or maybe work related issues. Then 1/3 of the managers, they spend their time in negotiating the conflict in the organization, and the 50% of the staff are transferred as a result of because of conflict, they try to change their jobs, so where they feel that the environment is not conducive, and usually the organizations, they spend around $125,000 on average basis on the conflict cases, so per annum. So this is what they spend in redressing the conflict, and usually 25% of the employees, they feel sick because of conflict. Because of conflict, what they are facing, no, they may be, that may affect their mental health, and also may impact on their physical health also, and also on social life. So these are the statistics that tells us the importance of the conflict. Now we shall understand the stages of conflict. The stages of conflict include, here we have 5 different stages. The first one is latent conflict, then perceived conflict, then felt conflict, fourth one is manifest conflict, the fifth one is conflict aftermath. So coming to the first one, as the name itself says, latent conflict means it is under the surface, not yet happened. So usually we keep that within us, so it is like a budding stage, so it is likely to arise slowly, it takes the shape, and later it may explode. So that we call as latent conflict. So usually this is because may arise because of the trigger, what you observe, what you get, and that leads to conflict, and that may sometimes bring an equilibrium in terms of when the conflict is resolved. Otherwise it may lead to the next stage. Here we have 5 different stages. The first one is potential opposition or incompatibility. Usually the conditions include communication, structure, and personal variables. And the second stage is cognition and personalization, means it is perceived conflict and felt conflict. The third stage is conflict handling intentions, that is competing, collaborating, compromising, and avoiding accommodating. Fourth stage is behavior, that is word conflict, and the fifth one is outcomes. Sometimes it may lead to the increased group performance and maybe the decreased group performance. So in order to understand, we study the model called as Pondi's model of organizational conflict, which was formulated in 1967, which defines the conflict process as a dynamic among individuals and is made up of 5 stages of conflict, that is as discussed earlier. Coming to the first one, latent conflict, it is the stage in which factors exist in the situation which could become potential conflict inducing forces, that is maybe due to drive for autonomy, divergence of goals, or role conflict. Sometimes we will be having ambiguity based on the different the conditions prevailing around us, or maybe the ambiguity with respect to the roles we have to perform, or ambiguity with reference to goals, like that. So when you are in such the dilemma phase, you will be having conflict, what to do, what not to do, how to do, and also that stage we call as latent stage. The next important stage is perceived conflict. It may sometimes arise even if no conditions of latent conflict exist. This is the stage when one party perceives the other to be likely to thwart or frustrate his or her goals. So that is the case in which conflict is perceived when no latent conflict arises. It is said to result from the parties misunderstanding each other's true position. Such conflict can be resolved by improving communication between the groups. The third one is felt conflict. It is the stage when the conflict is not only perceived but actually felt and recognized. That is, for example, A may be aware that he is in serious argument with B over some policy, but this may not make A tense or anxious, and it may have no effect whatsoever on A's affection towards B. The personalization of conflict is the mechanism which causes many people to be concerned with dysfunctions of conflict. In other words, it makes them feel the conflict. And the fourth stage is manifest conflict. So this is the next level of the felt conflict, so which is being expressed by the person. It is the stage when the two parties engage in behaviors which evoke responses from each other. The most obvious of these responses are open aggression, apathy, sabotage, withdrawal, and perfect obedience to rules. So that means here, except for prison riots or political revolutions and extreme labor unrest, violence as a form of manifest conflict is rare. Or where it is like where you express, maybe you express through aggression or withdrawal or apathy. So different types of manifest can be seen, that is coming out of the scene, or being submissive or suppressive, showing that suppressive nature or showing that aggression character, like that. So these in different forms the manifest can be exhibited. The motives towards violence may remain, but they tend to be expressed in less violent forms. And the last one is, that is conflict aftermath. The aftermath of conflict may have positive or negative repercussions for a organization depending upon how the conflict is resolved. If the conflict is genuinely resolved to the satisfaction of all participants, the basis for more cooperative relationship may be laid, or the participants in their drive for a more ordered relationship may focus on the latent conflicts which are not previously perceived and dealt with. So here we have a few examples like the grievances, then lack of monetary benefits, that is the conflict, the reasons for the conflict, or then these are the reasons, maybe the promotion or recognition, any the issues with promotion and recognitions or maybe harassment, discrimination, prejudice and bias, then any imparity with respect to identity, then unconcerned attitudes of administration, frustration, escalation of conflicts and violence, then cost and effects of conflicts, then perspectives of conflict, organizational and individuals, then spectrum of conflict, personal conflicts, group conflicts, labor conflicts, social and political conflicts, contingency conflict management process. So all these, so on daily basis, like usually in an organization, we come across many such issues the employees used to bring with respect to concern with maybe the promotion issues, harassment, recognitions, identity issues, then grievances of personal needs, unfulfillment of the requirements, then biases and all. So that may lead to conflict. The second step is to choose a strategy that matches the situation and the variables involved. So when such reasons have been exhibited or may lead to the conflict, then definitely it requires some strategies to be followed by the HR or by the organization. So where it attracts some strategies to be involved. Here we discuss about the contingency theory, which proposes 5 main strategies for conflict management as competing, collaborating, compromising, avoiding and accommodating. So that these 5 different stages we will be discussing in the next unit as strategies. Now we shall try to understand what is the cost of workplace conflict, because so far we discussed what is a conflict and what is its impact, reasons for conflict. Now once we understand the conflict as a serious issue, then we have to understand the cost of the workplace conflict also, otherwise it may definitely lead to a serious concern, like it may reduce the organizational performance, or it may affect its result performance, or on its the image or employee loyalty, like that. So a recent study by CPP Incorporation found that the average employee spends nearly 3 hours a week involved with conflict, that is costing employers nearly around $360 billion, which is paid the paid hours every year. So this is the amount that the organization will be losing on conflict. So that is, cost of conflict is a tool which attempts to calculate the price of conflict to the human race. The idea is to examine this cost not only in terms of the deaths and casualties and the economic costs borne by the people involved, but also the social, developmental and environmental and strategic costs of the conflict, because definitely this has to be calculated. So that is why this cost of conflict is called as a tool which we use to calculate or to know the cost involved in addressing these issues. Coming to workplace conflict, it occurs when there is a disagreement amongst employees due to opposing interests, personalities, beliefs or ideas. Conflict in the workplace is natural and bound to occur when you have people of different backgrounds and perspectives working side by side. Poorly managed or dysfunctional conflict hurts productivity, escalates out of pocket costs and increases risk, degrades decision making and impedes an organization's ability to achieve strategic goals. Now coming to assessing how to assess the cost of workplace conflict. So usually this can be assessed based on the observations that is which is being expressed in the form of stress, frustration, anxiety. Then you may feel loss of sleep, strained relationships, grievances and litigation. Then presentism, how you present yourself